Whoa. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this enthusiastic welcome. It's so nice to have you, everyone. I mean, thank you so much for being here. It's the third conference of the Women for Change session at ChangeNOW, and we're thrilled because every time it's a blast, and it's thanks to you. Thank you so much. Oh my God, I mean, the best friends in the world, they are all shouting at the, you're so amazing. Well, let's deep dive right in, if you will. What are we going to talk about today? I'm sure that at least one person in this room who has felt the potential impact that their decision, their choice may have on someone else's life. A budget allocation, an investment, a recommendation, giving credit to someone who deserved it, an advice. Try to think about it. You know, that gesture that may change someone's life. And in creating this session, we asked ourselves, what can we do more to make, you know, those women more than just visible? How can we do that? And don't get me wrong, because visibility is the first step towards a fair future, because it allows to amplify voices, to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table, a place in the conversation, so it's very important. But we wanted to go a bit further, and that's what we are going to do today together. This time, we wanted to engage our audience, you, all of you. We wanted to engage this wonderful community that is being brought here at the summit. Because we want to show you guys that each and every one of you has the keys to positive change in your hands. Really, and it's not phrase-making, it's true. And, well, actually, we have the keys to this positive change together when we put our hands together. But anyway. So I do have a question, and you can vote by a raise of hands. Have you ever heard of sponsorship before? Oh, that's not too bad, actually. OK, that's cool. Well, there's a lot of terminology, but let's agree on one definition for today. Sponsorship is the next step up from mentoring. When we try to define it, we say that it's that helping relationship in which powerful people use their personal resources, their personal power, their personal influence to put a woman not just in the spotlight, but in a key role. That makes a difference. So all that, be it in private organizations, public institutions, governments, NGOs, in the innovation space, everywhere. It's about recognition, it's about sorority, it's about solidarity. Because making visible is crucial, but making visible to the right people is even more important, because the right people can actually make a difference. And you guys, you're part of these people, but because believe it or not, we all have something to change somebody's life. So think about this woman who, thanks to your article or your nomination, was able to gain funding and visibility with target audience that were crucial to her project. Think about it. Or think about this colleague whose skills you praised to managers so that she can be given the opportunities, the budget, the place she deserves internally. Or think about that friend to whom you introduced a high-level contact of your network so that to help a project grow. We all have those cases around us, or at least we should be able to have them, because we all have something to share. A bit of light, a bit of influence, a bit of power, to shine even more together. So today we want to give you some keys. We want you all to leave this room with a few tips to enhance your power to change things, but also with a concrete roadmap of what you can do to become great sponsors. Because again, believe it or not, you can be a great sponsor. So we will showcase, we will, put on this stage some of the women who are a great source of inspiration for us. And I'm saying some of them, because obviously we can't put them all on this stage and even more on the summit, but give us some time. And so it's the first step at our scale. You'll get to meet them. And before I leave the stage to our amazing speakers and pitchers, and to our wonderful moderator, Joan Michelson, I would like to give credit to someone who has been working with me for a few months. She's called Mathilde Galina. She's right here. And I just want to say, Mathilde, thank you for your light. Thank you for your hard work. You've been an amazing friend, and nothing would have been able without you. So thank you so much. Have a great session.
God.
Good morning. Come on, are you present? Good morning. Good morning. I'm Joan Michelson. I host a podcast called Electric Ladies, hence why I'm here, right? I am in the business of raising the visibility of women in the climate crisis because we need women to help solve the climate crisis, right? Yes? Yes. Shaking heads, please. Yes? Okay, good. So today we're going to hear from some amazing women. First, we're going to hear pitches from the women who are part of the Shaping Our Future campaign. And then I'm going to have some conversations with some people who can give you specific tips on sponsorship and raising your career, raising your visibility so that you can make more of a difference. Sara? Okay? Okay, let's get started. We will start with some amazing women pitching for you. Okay, who is first?
I recently came across the most devastating fun fact I've ever read. And the details of it was a 5-year-old boy smoking 5 packs of cigarettes a day is what is the equivalent of household air pollution in low-income communities in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. My name is Charlot Magayi. I'm from Kenya. I grew up in Mukuru. It's one of the biggest slums in Nairobi. I was orphaned at a very early age. So by 10, I was already a total orphan. And at 16, I became a teenage mom. So I had to drop out of school to figure out a way to fend for myself and my young daughter. So I got a job selling charcoal. It was also the only fuel I could afford. So my daughter and I kept suffering from respiratory tract infections. And when she turned 2, she suffered a very severe burn injury caused by a traditional stove. This sparked my interest in providing a better cooking technology for my community. I wanted to empower women to be able to provide solutions, but also fight the high cost of fuel that my community was facing. In Africa alone, we have over 1 billion people. And about 750 million of us rely on solid fuels to cook. This results in 1 million deaths every single year. These numbers just keep rising too, because no one's doing anything about it, anything of significance. So I founded Mukuru Clean Stoves, and what we do is we use recycled materials to manufacture improved cook stoves, and then we partner with local women business owners to distribute to the very last mile. We've sold about 275,000 within the last 6 years, impacting the lives of over 1.5 million Kenyans who now benefit from cleaner air within their homes. But, thank you. As I research, I realized that our stoves were very powerful, but they weren't enough. They were reducing household air pollution by up to 90%, but not really completing the job. So I came across this study by the CDC talking about people catching malaria just before they go to bed, even when they have mosquito nets. And I asked myself, what are low-income communities doing just before they go to bed? They're using our stoves. So we are currently making malaria-fighting briquettes, as Kenya is the largest producer of pyrethrin, which is the strongest insecticide in the world. And we're hoping to distribute this to 10 million households across Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia by 2030. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Heïdi Sevestre, and I'm a scientist. What I study is a world that is disappearing. I study ice in the most remote corners of the world, in the polar regions, up north in the Arctic, down in Antarctica, high up on the highest mountains of the world. Today we know that glaciers are some of the very best indicators of climate changes. The more we burn fossil fuels, the more glaciers disappear. And today 2.5 billion people depend on the meltwater from ice and snow. We desperately need to spread the word on the importance of these glaciers. Let me tell you about a country I care deeply, deeply about. The country of Colombia. You wouldn't think of ice in Colombia, but actually there are still tropical glaciers left in the country. Small glaciers high up on these volcanoes. But in Colombia, nobody knows about the glaciers. And if you don't know about them, how can you care? How can you want to preserve them? So with my organization, the Last Tropical Glaciers, we want people to care. Because if science is not communicated, it has no impact. So how do we do this? We want to create the first digital archives of these landscapes. We want to map these glaciers in 3D using 360 technology to give this database to the local scientists, to the local population. Because as Baba Dioum said, a Senegalese engineer, you protect what you love what you understand, and you understand what you are taught. And this is exactly what we want to do. We want to collect the best possible material to not only be of use for the local scientists, but also make sure that we never forget how important these glaciers are. Because for the glaciers of Colombia and all the other tropical glaciers of the world, in East Africa, in Papua, there are still glaciers in those regions that will inevitably disappear. But it is not the case yet for the glaciers of the Himalayas, for the glaciers of the Alps, for the glaciers of Alaska, of the Andes. These are the glaciers we can still save. So by learning the process in Colombia, by mapping these glaciers, making sure we never forget about them, let's make sure that we don't give up on the glaciers of the Himalayas, the glaciers of the Alps, and make sure we don't forget the 2.5 billion people who need the meltwater from these glaciers. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ulrike. Thank you. My name is Ulrike, and in the year 2020, I co-founded rrreefs with 3 R's to rethink, rebuild, and regenerate coral reefs. As most of you may know, reefs are the most biodiverse ecosystem we have on our planet. And they're likely really, really important for the health of the ocean itself and thus our health as well. But also, they are our best bet against erosion and coastal flooding due to rising sea levels. The sad part is that if we don't act now, very likely we will lose almost all of the coral reefs in this world within our lifetimes. So my 3 co-founders, 3 amazing ladies, and I, we decided to act. And we developed a system of 3D printed clay modules that can bring back biodiversity in a very short time and grow back living corals in just 6 to 12 months. This is a tiny version, of course. I'm going to put them down. You can look at them later. So in our first experiment that we did in the Maldives, we grew corals the size of a football in just 3 years. And that's without doing anything, just putting these into the water. Then we printed 230 of these, about that size, and we built a 15 cubic meter reef in Colombia on the island of San Andres. That's now thriving with life. And all we have to do is put this structure into the ocean. Nature will take over and bring back abundant life wherever we will put this. So now that we know that this works, we're starting to scale this up. And we're offering our reefs as a service to essentially 2 customer segments. One is straightforward. That's coastal resorts and hotels that need to bring back life around their properties or engage their guests or maybe mitigate damage that was done in the process of building the resort. The second customer segment is a little less straightforward, a bit more pioneering, and that's essentially all companies that are seeking to act on biodiversity before the regulations kick in, kind of like planting trees, but now they're planting corals. Since we started offering this in the middle of last year, we've closed contracts totaling about 250,000 for companies, and I've just sent out 3 offers to private island luxury resorts, totaling another 500,000. So we're really moving. But what we need now is for some of you maybe to come in as investors in our current seed round so that we can bring the cost of production of our modules down and also develop a digital and automated impact data reporting pipeline. We are raising 1 million, and if any of you are ocean lovers with some money on their hands and they want to support us, they want to create a legacy in helping coral reefs, I'm very, very happy to talk to you later. Thank you.
Come on, everybody, we stamp on the ground. Can you do it a little bit harder? Can you feel how hard it is? Can you imagine a healthy orange tree growing on this type of soil? I cannot. 100 years ago, there were many nutrients in our food than today. What our grandparents ate was healthier than what we eat today. Our landscapes are drying up. Soils are thick, hard as rock, exactly what the ground you stamped up with your feet. Worldwide, we're losing 10 million hectares of good soil every year. With it, we are losing plants, animals, and forests. We don't even know what is hidden under our feet. In a teaspoon of good soil, just this amount, there are more animals and fungi than people on the entire earth. We are 8 billion people on their planet, just in a teaspoon. Imagine. With soils, we are also losing the second carbon reservoir on the land and on Earth after the ocean, releasing huge amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. At betterSoil, the company, our startup, we make sick soil strong and healthy again. How do we do it? We combine newest research with indigenous knowledge. We have 4 principles: agroforestry, compost, biochar, and soil management. Soils are hungry as we are. We need to feed them like we feed our bodies. We collect bio-waste and turn it into betterSoil booster. It's our superfood, a natural fertilizer for healthy soils. Does it work? Yes, it does. Last year, we made a recipe for pistachio trees in Iran and feed them with our betterSoil booster. Already after 6 months, the leaves were bigger, greener, and healthier. At betterSoil, we are 16 people from 5 nations. So in different experience, soil science, sustainable agriculture, marketing, digital solution, and economics. This is the most important part for a farmer, economic. Our vision is healthy soil, healthy people, healthy climate. This way, carbon dioxide is stored back to soil again. Farmers harvest more, and soil can live once again. With your stories on social media, in newspapers, on televisions, we dig it together. Let's dig it together. With your financial support for our startups in Malawi, in Iran, in Kenya, we can produce more betterSoil booster. We can also hire more staff to work with farmers and make the world a little bit better for everyone. Thank you very much.
Wow, do we have some amazing talent here? Please give it up for these women. Incredible. Clean stoves, saving the glaciers, saving the coral reefs, fixing our soil. What a brain trust, right? Unbelievable. Okay, now I would like to welcome to the stage my first four guests. By the way, I am a New York City girl, so I hope you catch my American saucy wit, okay? It might not translate, but we'll try. We know that in order to have women advance, they need the support. And Garance went into this a little bit in the introduction, right? We need the support of each of us helping out. And so we have four extraordinary people to help us out today. Anna Stanley-Radière, Director of Climate. I'm going to ask you to come up as I say your name, if you would. Anna Stanley-Radière, Director of Climate Transparency at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, WBCSD. Jean-Marc Gallot, CEO of my favorite champagne, Veuve Clicquot, and I'm not saying that because he's here. Wherever. Eloïc Peyrache, forgive me if I'm butchering your name, General Director of HEC Paris. And a woman I've known for a long time, I'm privileged to see again, Anne Ravanona, founder and CEO of Global Investor, who is helping women like these get funding. It's wonderful to see you again. Thank you all for being here. So the statistics are really frustrating about women's advancement, and you see these kinds of intellects and you see the efforts that all of these people are putting out, and you meet all the amazing women here at this phenomenal conference. And we wonder why are only 8, maybe we reach 10 this week, of the CEOs of the Fortune 500, for example, women. Why are women only getting 2% of venture capital? What is holding women back? This is insane, people. Correct? Yes. We have some agreement on that this has got to be fixed. It's taking way too long. Sponsorship is one key factor in helping a lot of these women. To me, sponsorship is recommending somebody for a job or a key assignment when they're not in the room, when they have not asked you to do that, right? When you have an opportunity that you see to pitch them on your own, or when someone has that opportunity to pitch for you. And I apologize for giving you my back. I'll turn around periodically. We love the point you're making. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So these four people are on the front lines of fixing this problem, right? And they're going to give us some real insights on how both we can be a good sponsor or great sponsor, and how we can find a great sponsor, and how to build that relationship, right? Okay, so I want to start, Anna, with you. And yes, I have an Anne and an Anna, so we'll just swing from the fences here a little bit. Ultimately, this relationship is based on trust, right? It's based on knowledge and trust, understanding somebody's abilities, and having them believe in you, and having you believe in them. So when we spoke before, you mentioned that you had a great sponsor. So tell us what that felt like, what that was, what made that person a great sponsor for you, and how you manage that relationship.
Thank you, Joan. And I think it's great that ChangeNOW and Garance are putting up such a great panel here today and such a great discussion. I think that's one face of sponsorship. And I think, you sort of talked a little bit about a different face of sponsorship. And as we go through the discussion, I think everyone's going to share a little bit how they see sponsorship. So, just to be really clear, there are many different ways of interpreting sponsorship and many different ways in how it can manifest. For me personally, I think it's really empowering people to go into places where they're maybe not ready to go yet, and giving them that opportunity early on to make sure that they grow and they really have the opportunity to shine, and really taking that step back.
So that's early in their career.
Early in their career, but I mean, sponsorship is at all levels, and sponsorship works,
Right.
you know, sort of not just pushing people up, but also helping people sort of, you know, grow themselves. And I can explain a little bit what I mean in a second. But I had an excellent sponsor who put me in a position that I wasn't really ready for. You know, when I was a consultant, I was working on a project. We had a sort of leadership gap, and this really incredible lady, you know, instead of sort of saying we need to find someone else who can do this, you know, she said, Anna, why don't you do it? Why don't you try? Let's see how it goes. And that really made me feel, you know, like I had to prove myself, but also empowered, because I knew there was somebody who trusted me. So that for me was a really, really great first way of I guess, being in the limelight and sort of taking more responsibility. But it also made me think about what I want to be when I grow up as a leader.
So I really want to pull that out for a minute, because I run into a lot of women who say, when they're approached for a new job, oh, I'm not ready, or I'm not X enough, or I'm not Y enough. Okay, can we like erase that thought process, please? Let me put it to you blankly, what she just said. If somebody offers you a job or a position, they believe that you're ready for it, by definition. They trust that you will figure it out, okay? So don't be afraid, just go for it and say, I'll stretch, I'll figure it out, okay? Agreed? Yeah. Please? If they believe in you, they will give you the offer. If they don't believe in you, you won't get the offer. It's pretty blatant, okay? Okay, thank you. That's a big issue for women, so I just wanted to make sure we at least got that point across. Thank you. Eloïc, first say your name for me so I can stop butchering.
Eloïc.
Eloïc, okay. That's very different.
Almost.
No, I was completely wrong, actually. You're very polite. So following up on the portrait that Anna painted of a strong sponsorship relationship, another type of sponsorship is from an organization to individuals. And I understand that HEC has a program to support women with business schools. Am I correct on that? And so I want you to talk about that program and how it helps women advance in their careers, and how it helps your business.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we have a program called Stand Up program. And if I start by this, I think everybody in this room heard about the donuts economics, right? So the idea that if you want to manage planetary boundaries, you need social foundations. And so some people have to rise. So we decided with this program that we would target women from underprivileged zones and help them get financial autonomy, leave from eventually their activities. Now, the second thing is, we don't believe that there is something like women entrepreneurship, but there are very important obstacles for women. You just mentioned one, psychological. Every time we ask them, I'm not legitimate, I'm not the right person. Lack of interest, eventually, in entrepreneurship. Right. Lack of resources, and lack of support, sponsorship. So the idea was really, can we start there? So it's been there for 3 years. We had more than close to 2,000 women on a very intensive program, and very, again, impactful. And we have a lot of learning in this program that we bring back to the campus. And the different levels of actions are inspire, you just mentioned. So some people eventually at the school, they need role models. But those women, it's very interesting because we have a lot of storytelling about their own life, trying to identify what are their competencies, their ability. So, you know, search inside yourself and bring it there. You know, most of the entrepreneurs are overconfident people. So if you are not overconfident and you don't believe in yourself, no way you can make it. The second point is convince them that what they get is not what they deserve. What they get is what they ask. And I'm sure everybody in this room, or most of the women in the room, maybe read the book by Linda, you know, Baumskunk, is Women Don't Ask. So the first day is, what's your project? The second day is, how do you negotiate? learn about how to negotiate. We said lack of resources. So the idea is, can we connect you with people who can bring financing? Okay, that's interesting. But the thing we do with those women, and most of them come from underprivileged zone. How can you start a business without a single penny? Not a penny. So let's take an example. Some of them want to set up a restaurant. So either you take a loan and you go for a restaurant, or what more creativity is that, can you go in restaurants that are closed on Saturdays, and you say, can I borrow your kitchen for the day?
Wow.
And can I pre-sell the meals so that I don't have to pay for the ingredients? And after months, 2 learnings. Is there a business? And do I enjoy it? If yes, then maybe I can go for the loan, right? So there are a lot of learnings like that. One I was surprised about, and I don't know whether there's a lot of literature about this, is that a lot of people are afraid to fail, but those women, and massively, those women are scared to succeed. Because the role in their family, the role in their where they live, if they eventually outperform some of the things that men are doing around them, can be troublesome in the way they will manage their social activities.
So they might alienate people that they care about in their world if they're too successful?
Exactly. So we had to work on that part, which, again, I didn't necessarily expect to work on that, that dimension. So there are many, many dimensions like this that there were a lot of learning in that program that we decided to bring back to the campus. So what's the learning for the organization, the academic organization?
Oui.
Is a lot about this. And then it's a good way to train also the women that are in our graduate programs.
This is so good. And one point I want to make, just expanding on that for a second, is we're here to solve the climate crisis. Whatever work you're doing, it doesn't have to exactly relate to the climate crisis. You can find a way to address the climate crisis with whatever you're doing. You don't have to be saving the glaciers and the soil. You can be doing a restaurant and making sure that every way you do it has sustainable products and organic food and hires people that, et cetera, right? You can do it in a way that serves the climate crisis. Am I making sense? Yes? Okay.
And if you might add, if you want to manage the transition, you need to make sure that, justice is there, right? So you need also to make sure that those people rise and start being concerned about transition. Otherwise, the end of the month is a more bigger problem than the...
Yeah, exactly. So, Jean-Marc, your company was started by a woman entrepreneur who had nothing. In 1805, am I getting that correct? And talk about making lemonade out of lemons. I mean, this is an amazing story. So talk a little bit about Veuve Clicquot's founding, because people may not know, and how Veuve Clicquot is supporting women entrepreneurs, women in your company, because it's literally in your DNA.
Absolutely. Good morning, all. First, I'm very happy to see that there are a significant number of men in this arena for Women for Change. So
we need men's support.
That's a good sign. Congratulations and good morning.
Thank you.
Actually, it all started with Madame Clicquot because in 1805, her husband passed away, and at 27 years old, she became a widow. And actually, at that time, it was not allowed in France to run a company, except if it was a family-owned company and you were a widow. Everybody, starting by the father-in-laws, made everything they could for her not to continue, but she did it. And it's a matter, back to your point, of audacity and determination, because that woman has been incredible. She invented a lot of things, reading table, rosé, vintages, and the international development. So in everything we do at Veuve Clicquot today, we are inspired. And we talk about sponsorship. I think it's all a matter of inspiration and role model. We have been conducting for 4 years a bold barometer around the world in 27 countries. And we have been asking to 50,000 women, what do they think about women entrepreneurship? And we see first some major differences between the different countries. And we see, unfortunately, back to your point, that women are not as much as men in entrepreneurship for social or societal barriers, but also because of self-confidence. And the feeling, 57% of them believe that it will be more difficult for them to get some financing than men. So in this world, at Veuve Clicquot, we want to have some impact, we want to be pragmatic, and we want to show some very inspiring women. Can you imagine that in France, if you ask for the women who want to become an entrepreneur, 93% of them said that they would love to have a role model. Only 18% of them can give the name of one woman entrepreneur. And the name they give is someone like Liliane Bettencourt. We all like Liliane Bettencourt, but she has been here for quite a while, and she is not really an entrepreneur. They talk about Céline Lazorte, they talk about Anne-Sophie Pic, but they have a very hard time to find some woman who can inspire them. So it's all about
Oprah Winfrey
role
is a good example,
model.
Do you think, maybe? Oprah Winfrey? Yeah. Sorry.
I have since there are, I'm sure, a lot of women
Anne has a lot of
Absolutely.
examples. Yeah.
Since there are a lot of women entrepreneurs around us today, you know that we have launched actually an open database called boldopendatabase.com, where now more than 2,000 women are already registered in order to be able to communicate between them and for the journalists and the financing people to see that there are some entrepreneurship. So please don't hesitate to get there. And also, you know that every year we have a bold program to present the Bold Woman Award of the year. Get to the Bold Woman Award, get registered. There is this year in France and in 27 other countries a way to put into the light a very inspiring and successful woman entrepreneur. It's all about being inspired and role model. We believe very much that it's a matter of really being audacious and determined, as Madame Clicquot was.
And asking, yes. I hope you're all making notes, okay? Are you like signing up and making notes here?
You can do it online right now.
Right. So I want to call out three quick things. One is, so many women say to me, I should say I also do career coaching, so I'm trying not to totally go off on this. But a lot of women say to me, they know what I can do. They will present me on their own. Okay, newsflash? No. Okay? You have to tell them what you want. You have to ask for it. Okay? And to Jean-Marc's point, audacity. Have audacity. Have the audacity to ask. Have the audacity to support somebody who thinks they are not getting supported. Have the audacity to step up and be a role model. Okay? I'm just trying to pull out some of these key points so they don't get buried in our vibrant discussion. So, my friend Anne, talk about entrepreneurship. At Global Investor, you're helping so many women gain the capital they need to grow their businesses. What type of sponsorship can help these women? What are they? They're not looking for a job. They're not looking for a promotion. They're business owners who want to control their own destiny in that sense. So jumping off of what our tremendous male allies here have said, what do you see as the main things that they need?
Money.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
I'm here to talk about money and how sponsorship is the path to money, okay? I think one of the things I like to say to all women entrepreneurs is think big, believe in yourself from the inspiration, and ask for more money, right? So the asking for more money starts in your career when you're negotiating salary, or you don't. So you need to start there.
Ask.
We talked about that earlier. But when it comes to funding, the best form of funding for a woman entrepreneur is a paying customer. So everybody here sitting in the room, you can fund women, you can sponsor them. First of all, fund them by buying from us. Find them on the Bold database, on Invest Her database, because we created the Founder database in 2020 during COVID. I say born during COVID, built to last. And the idea is to help, again, women entrepreneurs be found by customers and investors.
Right.
But now we've moved on to building the funder database, because where do you find the money? So we've built a global database of women founder-friendly sources of funding. So we rank the banks, the grants, the angel networks, the VCs, the private equity, the funds of funds, on how friendly they are to women. And so on 5 different categories, we say to them, have they actually invested in women? Do they have women investors who can write the check? Do they showcase women entrepreneurs? Do they show them on their websites? Do they have programs and support them? Have they signed a diversity charter? Do they invest with a gender lens? Meaning, do they even know the percentage of women founders or co-founders in their portfolio? Most investors I ask, when I say, what percentage of our portfolio have women founders? They can't answer the question, and I usually give them I say, okay, this is the first time you meet me, I let you off this time. The next time I see you, you need to give me a number. It's not good enough. So we have to count to be counted. So where does sponsorship come into funding, and how do we support women entrepreneurs? So you mentioned at the very beginning that the best form of sponsorship is when other people with power, with money, with influence speak about you when you're not in the room.
Right.
Okay? And so what's very, very important is when you're not in the room, but it's also even when you're in the room. Yesterday, I was at a networking lunch with fantastic women investors. There was a young woman who wants to become a VC. She's a successful founder. Now she wants to become a venture capitalist. And she was like, and she says, well, I don't know what to say, like, and she's like, I'm in transition. We were just chatting before the lunch. And then when she was introducing herself, she was just saying, yeah, I'm so-and-so, and, you know, I'm looking for the next thing. And I said, no, she wants to be a VC. So you're few here in the VC. So I spoke up for her. And then I did it for 5 or 6 other people. And they're like, Jesus, Anne, you're like on fire. I said, yes, because we need to speak up. So all of us here, how can we sponsor women and women entrepreneurs for funding? Number 1, when you are investors, you need to open up your network to women. Okay, this is the most important barrier. It is an old man's club, right. An old boys network. You mentioned 1.9% of venture capital going to women-only founded funds, 18% to mixed teams, 1% of global public procurement government, 1% goes to women-owned business worldwide, 1% of corporate procurement goes to women-owned business worldwide. We got to get out of the 1% club. We got to get to the 10%, the 20%, and so on. So how do we sponsor? When an investor or when an entrepreneur has those contacts, you say, oh, you need to meet so-and-so. So you have to give those warm introductions. That's very important in the sponsorship, okay?
And I just want to say one quick thing on launching off that, and hold your thought. It's not just that they can write a check directly, it's who that person might know.
Absolutely, okay. Because often what tends to happen is that entrepreneurs in general go and talk to every investor. They don't actually target them properly. So then the investors are like, oh, okay, but then when they've had that meeting and it's not the right fit, the entrepreneur often will like just go away. And I'm like, I always say to the women in particular, okay, Jean-Marc, Eloïc, Anna, Joan, we're not a good fit for your investment thesis. Give me the name of 3 other potential investors who could.
Who else should I talk to?
Who else should I talk to?
Perfect. I love it. You're taking notes? Yes? You are taking notes? Okay, good. You're getting your pitch ready? Okay, good. I'm glad.
May I say something about money? You're from the Anglo-Saxon culture is fine with money. I'm afraid in Europe, in France in particular, to have the word money is not that easy to have, in general, and for women in particular. So I think it's something we should find a way to address, because it's about really, it's the name of the game. Yeah. But we have a kind of tendency of being a little bit shy on this one, and we should also, especially for women entrepreneurship, find a way to make a woman more confident in asking.
Do you know what? They are. But what happens is, Jean-Marc, and to everybody in the room, there's nothing wrong with women. We're mentored to death. We need sponsorship and we need funding, right?
That's
we don't
why
need
I like
fixing.
This panel.
There was never anything wrong with us.
Right.
Okay? So it's right, we need to have that money conversation, but we have to go beyond it.
Well, and go ahead. But I just want to call out, the culture matters, right? Get to know, so to pull on Jean-Marc's point, get to know about the people that you're going to talk to before you talk to them. Understand what their values are. Understand what their pain points are, what their interests are, what they're investing in, and what their culture is, so you can be relevant to them and build that bridge. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe to add one point, there are some studies showing that a man who's an entrepreneur has great ability to attract talents in the team. And if you look at women entrepreneurs, they have much more difficulties at the beginning, so they get 25% of what a man would get in terms of application until they raise money. And once they start raising big crunch money, then it changes, because it brings confidence to the other one. So, asking for money is very important, and it has an indirect effect. Is once you do it, then applicants will show up and will come in line to eventually work with you.
Right.
So
Well, and it's not a lack of ambition, because we talked about the different reasons that women set up their businesses. We didn't talk about necessity.
Yeah.
Okay, that's globally, that's one big issue, like that we have to feed our children and our families.
Well, and that's the thing, is that women have been underpaid, and so there's a bigger gap. But I'd like to get super practical, and I've tried to pull out some points that they've made. But let's list what makes a good sponsor. Let's get, you've had a good sponsor. I'm sure you've been a good sponsor. If I want to be a good sponsor, or a great sponsor, not good is not good enough, right? We want to be great, right? So if I want to be a great sponsor, how does that conversation go? What do you say?
Well, maybe just to sort of react a little bit, and then I'll answer your question. We've talked a lot about female entrepreneurship and sort of, the role of lifting up women. But sponsorship is not just for entrepreneurship. Sponsorship happens in all wakes of life. I work with big corporates. There's a big role for sponsorship with whoever you work with, right? So I really want to make that point clear, because I know there's people also in the audience who don't work in entrepreneurship and sort of investment and all that.
Yeah, in fact, it's almost more important in the corporate sector and in the if you have a job.
Exactly.
Yes.
And again, maybe to sort of take your question a little bit further,
Sure.
Rather than saying sort of how does the conversation go, I'd like to share a little bit what do you have to do on sponsorship? What are the sort of the 3 things that everyone should be doing? So I think we heard a little bit about asking for it, right? Don't hesitate to ask people to sponsor you, people you trust, people you see that you admire, men and women, and sort of holding people to account for that support. I think the second thing,
But how do you do that? So talk about that. How does that start? I mean, do you call them? Do you tap them on the shoulder? I mean, how do you start that conversation?
Exactly. You see somebody who inspires you. You start having a conversation. You say, look, I love what you do. I love what you're sharing with me. I feel inspired when I talk to you. I feel your energy. Help me. These are my problems. These are my blockers. This is where I'm trying to go. What can you give me? And also, how can I help you? And I think that's the second point.
Exactly.
Sponsorship is not just top down. Each and every one of us can have a role in sponsorship. So it's me bringing my team up, but it's also my team bringing me up and sort of supporting me and saying, Anna, you did a great job on that, or I absolutely love what you're doing. Let me introduce you to X, Y, Z. So that's the second point I want to make. It's really, really important to understand that. And I think at the end of the day, each and every one of us has this opportunity to make a difference, so we shouldn't be afraid to take those steps.
Oh, I love that. Having you guys here is really important, because the male point of view in this is critical, especially in the world we live in now. And so I'm a New York City girl, so I'm going to touch on the third rail, okay? How can a man sponsor a woman in today's world? It's trickier. There's a bit of a minefield. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I have had men in my career say to me, I can't put you forward for X because they'll think we're having an affair when we're not. I mean, that's absurd, right? So for the male allies in the audience, and for the women who want to get a male ally, because let's face it, you guys still dominate the power positions in this world, How do you ask a man to be your sponsor? And how does a man tell a woman that he would like to put her forward to see her career grow? Because let's face it, it's a form of an intimate relationship. It's based on trust. It's based on knowing each other. And so how do you do that today?
Well, I think what Anne just said is very important. It goes in both directions. So telling a man, you're going to learn a lot also about this relationship. You are eventually managed by some woman. You're managing some woman. So spending some time with me and being my sponsor, you're going to get better in managing the whole team. I think that could be a way also to convince those person. It's not only you bringing me some advice, value, and I'm sure you can. And it's very important that you do. And maybe it brings me the man perspective as a woman to understand what's going on. But I'm going to, teach you what it brings some, information, different perspective, and you're going to be much better in managing the whole team. Do you want to do that? You have 50% of women in your team. Do you want to learn from my perspective too? I think that can be a way also to convince some of those men to get on board.
I love that. So you're saying the words that I like are you're going to learn from my perspective as well, rather than I can help you or whatever. But you can learn from my perspective.
I mean,
okay, did you write that down?
It's an opportunity and not a burden. I think sort of to reframe.
Right, exactly. And it's mutual. Go ahead.
And I would like to answer to your question by facts. I was mentioning having impact. There are some facts and figures. You have a management team. When I took over Veuve Clicquot, out of 8 people, there were 1 woman and 7 men. Today, I cannot say it's parity, but it's 3 and 5. So it's 3-5, 5-3, 4-4, fine. But not 1 and 7. We follow also now in France the salary gap between men and women. I think this is a fact. In France, we are, I think, at 17 or 18% difference of salary between men and women.
Crazy.
I follow that on a quarterly basis in Veuve Clicquot. We are now at 1% difference. So it's not perfect, but getting there.
Bravo.
So I think that there has been all these questions about the quota for the boards and everything. Maybe it was necessary at a point, and then after you get rid of the quotas. But just get some facts of how much men and women are treated in the companies. And this is a way to move forward, and I believe we should do more on this.
So you've done this in your company, and you just enumerated it. How did you do that? What can we learn from your experience of how you have advanced these women? Did you have to, a lot of times people say, well, we don't have any female candidates for that SVP job because none of the women are VPs. I'm like, sorry, go down a level. They have the capacity, they just haven't had the job yet. So how do you go about, how did you find the other women to elevate to your C-suite?
It's a good question, because actually it's sometimes not coming from you, but by the perception. You ask a headhunter a VP position, and 90% of the candidate the headhunter comes back to you is with men. And you say, did I ask anything specific? Can I have just a nice representation of what would be men, women, and everything? So you have sometimes to force a little bit the way of doing business that we have been doing for so many times. So it's, I think, a point of attention on every topic of what you do on the management side in order, little by little, to make it happen and to make some progress. It's not going to happen overnight, but I believe that when you can, you have to do it.
Yes,
be bold, Jean-Marc.
Yes.
Exactly.
And to his point, you have to force a little bit. You have to force a little bit to advance women. You have to advance a little bit to advance yourself. You have to force a little bit to address climate change. Go the extra mile. So to close out, I'd like to give a little bit of homework, okay? Yes, the educator is in the room. We have to give some homework. So I'd like you to write down, everybody in the audience and everybody listening, okay, you ready? If you're in a position of authority or influence, think about a woman you know whose talents you believe in. And you guys too, right now. Write down their name, or you can put it in your head because I know you're sitting here. Write down their name and how you will sponsor them, what you will do for them, what specific project you will recommend for them, how you will advocate for them, and I want you to do it tonight. You ready? Today or tonight? Accountability. If you are seeking a sponsor or a promotion, do the opposite. Who are you going to ask for? Who are you going to ask, and what are you going to ask for? So you guys, let's close it out. Go ahead. Let's close it out with the best advice for how they should go about that.
Well, I think
And
the
how you
best
wanna-
advice is to take the advice right now. So I'd like to get Diane, who's over there, to wave her hand. She leads a very exciting project on supply chain capability building called the Climate Drive. So go to Diane, talk to Diane at the networking session afterwards, and help her get the next level.
Parfait. Jean-Marc?
Well, actually, it's a matter of potential. So I think it's always very good to listen to the younger generation and ask to them who they could name as people around them who could do the job. So it's a matter of also more listening bottom up and not only top down, because you know a lot of great ideas come from the younger generation around us. So
I love that. Ask people who work for somebody who they would suggest to be elevated. Parfait. Eloïc?
Well, come on, apply to the stand-up HEC stand-up program. I mean, it's an amazing one, and you know, we'll take care of many things, and there will be a lot of learning, a great community, because community matters a lot. We are very, let's say, secure environment where we connect. So you can bring a lot. Really trying to have a mixed population, and there is a lot of learning from the other ones you can bring in. And we're going to go national pretty soon. It was very much in Paris. We're going to do that in all the territories, so it's going to be thousands of people trained. And again, when you look at the impact of the program, and you know, we had 63% unemployed before the program. We do that every year, some impact assessment. 23 after the program. So maybe I'm going to go and see some French authorities and say maybe this is much more powerful than some other programs that exist. So do not be shy, please. Join in and apply. We'll be happy to have you on board.
It sounds like Macron could use your help. My friend Anne?
So I would say when you're going to a conference, if you want to sponsor a great woman entrepreneur, because I'm talking about her, buy a ticket for her. Bring her with you.
Oh, that's a great idea.
If you're a speaker on a panel and you can't do it, give it the space to a woman. And if you're in Paris on the 29th and 30th of June, come to Invest Her Summit, because we're building a summit to help get 1 million women entrepreneurs funded by 2030, and you are all invited. We want to do it. So buy a ticket for someone else, or give your seat on the panel if you can't do it. And if there are already loads of men on the panel, say, no, we need another woman, and here's the name of the woman.
Terrific. And call out manels, right? We call them manels. Is that helpful? Please join me in thanking Anne, Anna, Eloïc, and Jean-Marc. Yes? Okay, you have homework. Yes? Merci beaucoup. You're welcome. I think we're going to have a few more women pitching, and then we're going to have, thank you so much. And then I'm going to have another conversation with the man who made this happen with his wife. So stay tuned, stay seated, much more to come. And you'll hear from some more amazing women, okay? You fired up, ready to go? Good.
If I say someone is having a heart attack, you think about a man, right? So that means that women, they don't have heart attack? Well, of course they do. It's actually the first cause of death of women in France. The thing is, when they go see their practitioners, their closest ones, most of the time they will diagnose an anxiety attack. And that's the big mistake. For centuries, medicine have been studied on the male body, which means that we don't know that the symptoms of a heart attack are different between a man and a woman. And indeed, the main mistake is that women have been put aside of our health systems. So that's why we created Jeen. to rethink women's health, to build a new standard of care for women. So our solution are health centers fully dedicated to women. We have 3 main points. First, we see women as a whole, not just a uterus, which means that in the same place, we have medical, paramedical, and preventive care, so independent practitioners that are all experts of the female body and who work together to offer the best health journey. Secondly, we have a mobile application to offer a seamless experience to women so they can chat with their practitioners between consultations. And third, we have a modern medical project. Modern because we don't want our places to look like gray caves like many hospitals. So at Jeen centers, it's warm, it's cozy, it's intimate. And modern because we address all the new ethical questions in society. So it's me, a farmer consultant, and Valentine, my co-founder, who's a midwife. So we consider it a perfect duet to innovate in the medical world. We is also a team of 5 wonderful women, with Haena right here, and more than 20 practitioners, men and women, who work with us on a daily basis. So last year, we did a pre-seed fund to open our first health centers in Paris, so 350 meter squares dedicated to women's health in the 11th arrondissement. And it's already a great success. We opened like a month ago. And now we want to go way more. So we will do a new fundraising this year to open at least 8 health centers by 2026 and address the needs of more than 100,000 women in France. So come with us and join the Jeen experience. Thank you.
Hadia had just given birth when she was diagnosed with acute leukemia. Due to the war in her homeland, Syria, few hospitals offered the treatment she needed. And so she, her husband Shadi, and their newborn faced 2 options: head to Damascus and risk getting caught in the crossfire between ISIS and the Syrian army, or cross into Iraq and become refugees. They chose the latter. Access to chemotherapy and safety meant living in a tent with no access to running water, 1 toilet for 40 people, but more importantly, no right to work, no pathway to citizenship, a life in complete limbo. Not long after, Hadia was introduced to us. NaTakallam, a social enterprise that hires refugees as online tutors, teachers, and translators, regardless of their location and regardless of their status. For years, Shadi and Hadia sustained themselves financially, teaching through their computer Arabic to students around the world. But they feared for their daughter's future. They repeatedly applied for resettlement to Europe, and they were repeatedly denied. And so, one day at the height of COVID, Shadi gathered all the savings made through NaTakallam and took for a dangerous 3-month journey with smugglers, crossing by foot from Iraq to the Netherlands. While many die along the way, he made it. He was granted asylum, and he filed for family reunification when was soon joined by Hadi and his daughter. Operating at the intersection of millions of connected, skilled refugees, growing demand for language services, and the online economy, NaTakallam delivers curated, quality language services to individuals, to universities, to companies, to organizations like the World Bank, Hilton Hotels, Yale, Columbia. The work provides dignity, income to refugees, and life-changing relationships. Rather than being passive recipients to aid, they have self-generated over $3 million to date. At NaTakallam, we see refugees as forced digital nomads. In a world where over 100 million people are displaced, and with millions more who will become climate refugees,
integrating them into the global economy is essential. Today, Heïdi credits NaTakallam with saving her life. Her family is integrating Dutch society, and she is cancer-free. Whether you're a language learner, a company in need of translation services, a professor looking to liven up your classroom, at NaTakallam, language is life-saving. Join us.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be an environmentalist. But I grew up in a small town in the north of Russia, near the Arctic Circle. The parents were working in oil and gas industry, and I naturally followed their path. For over 14 years, I worked in dirty industry. Basically, I constructed wells. I pumped and mixed cement in the middle of Siberia. It was a very tough time. I am not going into details about cold conditions and how difficult to work in male-dominated industry when you need to prove yourself every day. In 2016, I changed it to, I remembered my childhood dream of becoming an environmentalist. I always wanted to make a positive impact on the planet, but my family and its school to work in oil and gas, I forgot about my dream. Nevertheless, I had a rich and interesting life, but it was not enough for my realization as an engineer and human being. And I know that I need to do something else. I made a decision to go to Europe and study renewable energy, so I changed my life. In 2019, I opened the clean tech startup, Ulrike. We are building floating solar power plants. We are focusing on near-shore locations where half of global population lives. At Ulrike, we want to solve 3 problems. First, EU needs to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 55% in only 7 years. Second, cost of electricity is very expensive. Third, many locations don't have available land space to install solar panels. Our technology solves all these problems. We generate a clean energy from solar panels, cost of our electricity twice less than electricity from the grid. And we don't occupy any land space, installation on unused water space. We manufacture floating system by ourselves. We assemble the power plants and install it on water and generate clean energy. Our system survives storms with wind speed more than 100 km/h and 2-meter waves. So, I'm solo female founder of hardware startup. Again, solo female founder of hardware startup. You see so many red flags for investors' due diligence. But I managed to raise over €1 million during the recession, and I'm happy with what I'm doing. Most of the time it is hard work and tears sometimes, but I know the positive change is always possible. If I could change my life, everyone can do it. Take small steps and move forward. Let's believe in ourselves. Ignore doubts from others and from within, and celebrate every milestone achieved. These achievements will give you more strength to move forward. This achievement will bring you true happiness. Thank you.
Go ahead. Let me see. More amazing women, huh? Let's give it up for these amazing women, can we please? Okay, is everybody enjoying this amazing conference? So you're about to meet the man who made it happen with his incredible wife who I had on my show. I'd like you to meet, first of all, I want you to take notes on what you just heard. Which of these entrepreneurs resonated with you, who you want to support, and the notes from our sponsorship conversation, okay? We're in the land of deliverables here, okay? So to close out this marvelous morning on Women for Change, I want to welcome to the stage Santiago Lefebvre, whose name I'm probably going to butcher, but we'll try. Santiago Lefebvre, the CEO and co-founder of ChangeNOW. Give it up. The man who made it happen. And his wife, Rosemée Lecourt, was a guest on my show, Electric Ladies Podcast, and you can listen to her. That's how I came to be here, to meet you. And I'd like you to also meet Bianca Pitt as well, if you give it up for Bianca, co-founder of She Changes Climate. Who could be more appropriate than She Changes Climate, right? Okay, thank you for being here. Welcome, and congratulations on a terrific show.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Bianca, I want to start with you. How has sponsorship helped you in your career?
Very good question. How has it helped me in my career? I think the first sponsor in my life, and that's true probably for many girls, was her father, who, you know, with a sense of humor, love, and support, brought me up through my childhood and conveyed me with a sense that there weren't any glass ceilings. He had only daughters, and I say only because he was the only man in the family, and learned to deal with women in a very, very passionate way, I would say. For me, the main thing was really to come out of my childhood thinking I could do anything and there weren't any barriers.
Wow.
However, that said, is I grew up in Europe. I was sent through education, university. So I was very privileged, I was very lucky to grow up in that environment with that backdrop. And I very much understand that many women around the world do not live on that turf, on that soil, essentially, that will help them strive in that way and will help remove barriers for them in that same way.
Have you had sponsors specifically in your life who, or someone who, it may not have used that name, right, that word, but have you had, when you evolved your career, did you have people who recommended you for assignments, recommended you for jobs, recommended you for opportunities that then, how did that work out? How did that happen?
Yeah, also many times, I would say, because I don't shy away from having a conversation with people. So when I was interested in something, I would go up to someone, whether that was a friend or someone in industry, and ask them for their advice and ask them for, you know, actually really just a chat about that industry sector that they were working in. And most amazingly, actually, most of my first jobs came out of those conversations. So I wasn't even applying for a job specifically. I was just having a conversation. And then people thought, actually, let's give her a chance.
Okay, did you hear that? What advice do you have for me? Is a phenomenal question. Okay, even if it's somebody a company you want to work for, you can just say, you know, what should I know? Here's what I'm trying to do. What do you suggest, right? And I love that. And they offered you a job by virtue of the conversation.
This is how it started, yeah.
Boy, that's a great takeaway. Okay, good. Santiago, I hope you're breathing a little easier now that we're almost through the conference.
We're halfway.
You're halfway, yeah. So you have, from my experience, a tremendous female team. Your wife, obviously, Rosemée Lecourt, Mathilda Garance, Maria Mellet, those are the women that I've gotten to know. What do you think, how did you find these women? What do you think is the best way for women to connect with men who are supportive of women's careers?
Well, the thing is that at ChangeNOW we don't really make any difference. You know, it's just that it happens that the best talent we find are women.
Yes, we like that.
So we don't make any difference, men or women.
Yes, I applaud your applause. Yes, the best talent is women.
And you can see everywhere here is that, for example, here, if you look at our content, we are with a good parity, you know, and without really making efforts, is that in the field of those who are really doing things, you find a lot of women with great talent doing great innovations, great solutions, great actions. So first, it's pretty easy to find the right people here. And then that's true is that sometimes that's not the case when we go up the ladder in governance level, etc. So this is something we'll need to change. But on our side, ChangeNOW, as we don't make any difference, we see this equality appear pretty easily.
So what do you mean as you go up the chain, it's harder? What do you explain that?
Well, I think that Bianca will be much precise on the numbers and everything. But for example, if you look at the change makers level, we have a lot of women change makers. And we have a program during the year, which is the Women for Change program, where we give visibility to these change makers and we give them acknowledgement also for what they are doing. But then if you go, for example, in a COP, there is clearly an inequality in the numbers of women representatives, and this is how I leave it here because I'm not knowing the real numbers as you do, but this is a fact that is pretty easy to see.
Okay. Bianca, navigating a sponsorship relationship can be tricky. So it's not asking for a recommendation. It's not asking for a reference for a job. Like I've applied for a job and they want a reference. Will you, that's being a sponsor is more of a long-term relationship, right? It requires, as I said this more earlier, trust and getting to know someone. So how do you navigate that? How do you start to build that? I mean, what do you say? When you've built these relationships, yes, you have asked for advice, but then what? How do you build that relationship? Do you stay in touch on a regular basis? Is it structured? How does that work?
I think as human beings, we are ultimately relational and shouldn't be transactional. But I think the society we live in has become very transactional, and particularly in response to the climate emergency that we're in now, we have to be sometimes, I'd say, more transactional than we want to be when we know that we have to build up relationships. And I think, as Santiago says, we don't want to really look at someone as that's a man, that's a woman. We want to look at them as that is a human being, and therefore plays an important part in building a sustainable future, a positive future for all generations that are to come, and that have to play an important role in being leaders in this transition. Now, the problem is that women are horrendously absent in this transition-making process. So we know that all our operating systems are unsustainable. Our energy system, our finance system, our transport system, our fashion system. They are not fit for purpose with 8 billion people on this planet. What we have to do is we have to develop many more leaders, and that means many more of us here in the room have to become sponsors and have to double up their efforts. And I know we're all exhausted already because many of the people here are already converted to the fact that we need to act right now. But what we're trying to do is shine a light on those that still sit in obscurity, although they really have leadership potential. And those people are often women. We talked about the lack of VC funding for women earlier. The number I normally work with is 2 to 3%, and sadly that number's gone down to 1.9%, as you mentioned earlier. Now, if we're only investing into if we're not investing into the full human potential, into the full 100% of humanity's ideas, vision, perspective, we're not going to make it. So what does that mean for sponsors? What does that mean for our relationships? We've got to develop relationships with men and women. We have to break out of that mindset that has been created over 10,000 years of what we call a patriarchal thinking and patriarchal system, to a mindset that is inclusive and supports women in all their diversity.
And we need the chemistry that happens between different minds, right? The alchemy. Just to pull on one thing that you tie a couple things together that you said, when we're sponsoring women, when we're recommending women for a job, or looking for somebody for a job, suggest someone who is actively working to address climate change, no matter what the job is. They can be a finance person, but choose and recommend someone who is also who feels passionately about addressing the climate crisis and doing it in a sustainable way. I mean, now we have the regulations that require, the enumeration and the reporting of all these statistics, and so you need somebody who's in finance, choose someone who knows how to count carbon emissions or what have you, right? So we can tie them together. This is a session on climate, and she changes climate. We need that intersection, absolutely. Santiago, I'd like your thoughts on what I asked the other gentlemen on this, because it is trickier for men today to sponsor women and to mentor women because of the sensitivities. So how do you suggest that a man go about sponsoring a woman today, and how do you suggest a woman go about asking a man to be their supporter in that way? Because it does require trust and a level of intimacy that we have to navigate today.
Great question. Now, definitely, the thing is that you can see people, and as you said, they can be either a man or a woman. What I see is the talent and the soul behind the person. Okay, so when you start with this footage of equality, that's very easy to have a profound conversation also. Okay. And if I take on my side, I wouldn't have made an MBA if someone didn't give me a little nudge, for example. And so just nudging already is huge, can have a huge impact. And so this is my approach for me, is that when I see talent, I try to nudge, I try to support, to give opportunities. And that doesn't really need to be asked somewhere. It's that you encourage, you acknowledge the fact that this person has a great quality, and that she can do something. You make her believe that she can do something with it. And this just comes with those little things, I think. You don't have to elaborate a big plan of sponsoring someone. It's just by small touches and support.
So you're building them up. It's every conversation matters, right? I like to call them mini mentoring moments or mini sponsorship moments, where you're maybe even casually in a conversation, you hear someone say that they're interested in XYZ job. Tell them to apply for it. You can do this. You're qualified. Go for it, right?
Yeah. And the thing is that this is not a relationship where, like I would say, some teachers try to teach you something. Actually, when you are supporting someone who has got the talent, you just need to pinpoint the direction she has to identify to express this talent that you saw,
Oh, I love that.
You don't have nothing to learn to the person. You just have to say, look, this is wonderful. You're super strong there. This is your point, and work on it.
This is a strength of yours. Pursue it. Acknowledge the individual skills and expertise that you see and talents that you see.
And we spend too much time looking at where we are not good at, and where you can become exceptional at something. It's when you work on your strengths. And so this is, I would say, the best way to nudge people.
Go ahead. You look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I think, as Anne said earlier, I think there's nothing wrong with us. We don't need fixing. There's something wrong with the system, and that's a problem that we as women have as such. We are super talented, and we are rearing to go. And this is why I became one of the co-founders of a movement. It started as a campaign, but it's become a movement of women rising into leadership. And all we need, as you say, is that nudge to remind us of our power. So sometimes compare that to the elephant. They tie up baby elephants to a wooden post to keep them in position, and then they grow up. And they don't realize, once they're grown up, that they can rip that post out of the earth without any problem. They are so used to being plugged to the ground. And this is exactly what we, as women, have experienced. And this is what we've got to do now, is rip that post out of the ground and just get going. And once you're going, you know, there's no stopping. So I see so many amazing women, champions for climate action, champions for solutions around the world.
Around this conference.
Exactly, around this conference. Very, very impressive, all of them. And there are many, many, many more waiting to be unleashed. And this is what we have to do now, because what we see in the research is that countries with more female parliamentarians have better climate policy and policy implementation. But there are only 25% female parliamentarians, and a fifth of ministers are only women. Same is true for board levels. So only 16% of board members are women. And we see the companies that have these board members are more successful, and they have better climate policy and policy implementation. Only 7 out of 100 FTSE 100 CEOs are women. Only 7. What are we waiting for? We want to get better, and we want to build this sustainable future. And I say we wouldn't sail around the world with one eye firmly patched up, particularly if you know that choppy waters lie ahead.
Well, and the fact of the matter is that women make 85% of the purchasing decisions in the world. And so if you're not having the end user, the buyer at the table, in the management team to understand that perspective, how are you going to develop a product and a system that serves your market, right?
It's a huge opportunity. So that is the opportunity in my view.
Tell us a little bit about She Changes Climate.
So it was set up, we had a wake-up call moment for COP26, the international climate negotiations that were held in the UK, where the leadership team was announced as an all-male lineup. There wasn't a single woman on that leadership team. I had been working in the environmental sector for over 10 years at the time, and I had such bad carbon tunnel vision that I needed a friend, a colleague of mine, to shake me up and say, listen, you know, we can't let that pass. This conference matters more than anything. It matters for our work. It'll affect all the policies further down the line, and it'll affect the future of our children.
So what actually does She Changes Climate do?
So we set up to just speak to the British government and make them amend their team. We thought they would do that within a week, and we'd all go back to our other jobs. Instead, they didn't amend the team, and we had to carry on all the way to COP26. And what it does is advocate and campaign for women at the leadership table of COP presidencies. So we want COP presidencies to be run and co-run by men and women together. So we're talking about co-leadership and 50-50 vision at the top of these climate negotiations that matter to all our future.
Okay, so everybody in this room who cares about having women at the table in the climate discussion, check that out, okay? Because we need to support that kind of an effort. Santiago, you're supporting that kind of an effort. I mean, it's amazing. I was talking to someone earlier who said they've noticed an abundance of women we saw these amazing women pitching entrepreneurs. I see many of them out here, women speakers. How do we persuade more men to refuse to be on all-male panels? How do we persuade more men to produce events like this and at their own events insist on having more women? Because it's amazing to me how men don't do that. I mean, I still go to conferences where there's an all-white male panel. I mean, many. And I'm like, where does this come from? So how do we reach men? Help us.
Well, on many ways, actually, more and more people is aware of this shift that we have to do. So on our side, we have just to communicate on it, and this is also a rule that the organizer has to make clear. That's it. So it comes also up to the organizer to do that. Okay. But I just wanted to bounce back on what you said, that and yes, we totally support what you do and what does She Changes Climate. Because there is this vision where we think we can just solve the climate issue as a standalone issue. But the fact is that we have so many other issues to solve at the same time, and we can only solve climate if we solve also the other ones. Because on top of the climate, we need to solve the problem of biodiversity, we need to solve the problem of resources, and the problem of inclusion of the human factor, meaning that this transition needs to integrate everyone from north to south, from men and women, indigenous voices, and all the minorities. And if we don't do that, we don't manage to really change things correctly. And when you think like that, definitely we need to have this much more balanced presence of men and women all along the way.
So to close out, what you're saying is sponsorship is also recommending female speakers. It's recommending women to present at your conference. It's recommending women panelists for our conference. It's saying what is our representation at this event and asking for the numbers, asking for the data, and making sure that we have ethnic, racial, gender parity as much as possible that represents the audience, and using whatever position you have. Sponsorship can be recommending a woman to be a speaker, right? Sponsorship is supporting She Changes Climate. Sponsorship takes many, many, many forms, okay? So thank you. Please join me in thanking Santiago and Bianca. And you have your homework, okay? You have your homework. I want to hear about your homework. You can post it to me on at Joan Michelson on Twitter. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. And have a wonderful rest of your conference. Thank you for joining us today and for all your hard work in solving the climate crisis. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was great. That was great. Thank you.